Will we see a Javonte Williams spike tonight? Who will be the first team to double up on tight ends? And how will the 2023 FFPC Pros versus Joes end up? Follow along with the live draft board tonight to watch our pick-by-pick analysis as we call the action from the 2023 FFPC Pros versus Joes Small Heath number 6 draft to see who's going to be winning a 2024 FFPC Main Event squad. We've got a great show for you. Farrell Elliott is here. Dave Terpoli is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour officially starts now.
I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture, are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-hosts tonight are the definitive commissioner of fantasy football and, of course, the well-spoken and well-experienced Dave Terpoli. Tonight we have the final of 6 special episodes for you this year. It's the 2023 FFPC Pros versus Joe's Small Heath number 6 draft tonight. We're going to be covering it for its entire duration. Shout out to the chat room right now. Post your questions you might have in there. Kevin Williamson already chiming in on the YouTube chat. Yes, the beard will be gone shortly. Enjoy it while you can because it won't be here much longer. Connect with us on Twitter. The show is at HSFFR. I'm at Eric Balkman. Farrell's at JFarrell Elliott. Dave is at Dave Terp. Check out the KFFSC at KFFSC.com. Just joined a slow main event draft there. Loving it. Love how my start's going there. We'll see what happens going forward. Check out all of the drafts going on there, including the main event, which starts live drafts on August 6th. Post on our Facebook page at Facebook.com/HSFFR. Email the show at the inbox, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions throughout the broadcast, email them in, send them in, tweet us to them, or tweet us them, whatever you want to do. We'll try to get them going throughout. Honestly, your best bet is through the YouTube and Facebook chat tonight. Our producer and mutual friend Rob and our audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, are monitoring those as well. The FFPC Main Event live drafts start this Friday, August 4th. Slow drafts going on right now. Win $1 million in the FFPC Main Event this year, as well as the Fantasy Pros Championship. You can win $1 million there and just $350 to enter in that contest, including a $50 discount when you enter in 3 teams. Every third team you enter will get that $50 discount. MyFFPC.com is where to go for that. Let's bring in tonight's guest, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott, and of course, the well-experienced and well-spoken Dave Terpoli. Gentlemen, welcome in. Farrell, how we doing tonight?
Oh, man, I got to tell you something. I got a friend, doesn't play fantasy football. He's been trying to get me to go get a couple of nightcaps with him. He's a college professor. And he's getting ready for his big stuff. And he said, what in the world? He said this to himself. What in the world could these guys be doing talking fantasy football? And so he listened to the show for the first time last night, because we're going 2 hours. And so, and he had nothing but high praise for all of us, and especially Terp. And, Terp, you are loved here in Louisville, is all I can say. And you need to break away from the comfortable grounds of your palatial estate home there in Pennsylvania. Come down and be with us. Come down and spend some time with Balky.
We're still at 5%.
This is an appeal. But, I've got some guys down here talking about what they could do with that 5%. And I'm knocking that talk down because I'm telling people that just like my friend Doc Hoffman, that to get to know Terp is to get to love Terp. So people want to get to know you. August 25th through 27th, your chance, Terp, to be a big-time Kentuckian that weekend.
5%.
Yeah. His 5% will expire, and again, he'll lose one of life's greatest pleasures. Balky, what are we going to do about him?
I think what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to huddle around a bottle of Woodford Reserve and have a Dave Terpoli cry party if he doesn't show up. We will sip our bourbon, we will enjoy life and weep that we could not enjoy.
We might have got the 10% if I can join that party.
Alcohol content.
Listen, we're in. Terp, this is going to happen. It's going to happen. If you show up in Louisville, there will be
one of these years. I'm just going to roll up there and just literally surprise you, not tell you I'm coming, be incognito, and just show up. And
Terp, we have ways of following your movements. There's no incognito for you.
You never know.
Guys, we are underway here. I want to get through the first round tonight. Introduce tonight's drafters. The 6 FFPC Joes and the 6 Fantasy Football Pros are gunning for a 2024 main event. Only first place gets paid out in this, and if you do win it, you will get a free entry into the FFPC Main Event next year, a contest that will pay out a $1 million grand prize. Drafting first tonight from Bleacher Report is Gary Davenport. He takes Justin Jefferson tonight. Jamar Chase off the board. After that, Jamar Chase to Peter Puzo, the FFPC Joe at the 2 spot. Travis Kelce off the board to FantasyMojo.com, Darren Armani. And by the way, I'll just cite this right now. Anytime we bring up FFPC data or stacks or anything like that, that is all courtesy of FantasyMojo.com, a website that if you do not subscribe to yet and you are an FFPC player, you need to be subscribing to it. Darren Armani, the godfather of the FFPC Pros versus Joes Challenge. Make sure you're signing up at FantasyMojo.com. The number 4 spot tonight is John Friedman. He takes Christian McCaffrey. Tyreek Hill goes off the board to Mike Shope and Adam Krautwurst from the Deep End Fantasy Football. Those pros taking Hill there. Bijan Robinson off the board to Vince Staffolino, a longtime FFPC and KFFSC player at the 6 spot tonight. He gets Staffolino. GuruElite's Jeff Manns takes Stephon Diggs after that. And then Cooper Kupp falls all the way to FFPC, the first ever FFPC main event winner, Chad Schroeder. He gets Cooper Kupp at the 8 spot tonight, followed by Austin Eckler to Michael Nazarek from FFMastermind, a guy who we'll have on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour in a couple of weeks here. Shelly Fossum, the Joe in the 10 spot tonight, takes CeeDee Lamb. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith actually finish off the round. Jason Petropoulos from BrotoFantasy.com ends up taking A.J. Brown, and then Devontae Smith, his real-life teammate, to Peter St. Pierre, a noted expert FFPC best ball player, drafting from the 12 spot tonight. So first thing I want to bring up, Farrell, what do you make of Cooper Kupp falling all the way to Chad Schroeder at 8 tonight?
Chad Schroeder lives a blessed life. That's just all you can say about it.
He sure does.
You know, he just shows up. And
First
Cooper
draft
Kupp
of the year, he said today, and Cooper Kupp falls the 8.
Slides into the 8th spot. And then Barkley, based on earlier picks last night, slides to him in the 2nd round. Sorry, I teased your 2nd round there, Balky. But, yeah, Chad's off to a great start.
Terp, your Eagles here making quite the appearance in the 1st round. Back-to-back, A.J. Brown to Petropoulos, and then St. Pierre ends up taking Devontae Smith. How surprised were you to see that?
Very surprised. I mean, mostly Devonta Smith is at a middle of the 2nd round, end of the 2nd round player so far in these drafts. It's definitely a massive movement to get both of them. It's really, really risky. I don't want to say anything bad about it because it's my Eagles, but it's not something I do even in this type of league where it's one or nothing. I just feel like there's too many guys you're passing on. It's not the type of league where you want to be too different because there's no real benefit for being too different. It's not like you're playing for an overall prize outside of glory. So you're just trying to win the FFPC main event, seat next year. To do that, I feel like you're reaching on 2 guys that really shouldn't be taken right there.
MP60 DC4L. I'm probably citing some sort of weird international code here, but thanks for hanging out in the chat room. Live from Germany, wishing everybody good luck in the FFPC Pros versus Joes contest. And Farrell Terp loves the draft coverage here that we are doing on the FFPC YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate that all the way from Germany. All right, Terp, I'm going to get into the 2nd round here. Before I get into it, I feel like I should bring up at the 201 tonight, Peter St. Pierre takes Jalen Hurts, which means the 111, the 112, and the 201 were all Philadelphia Eagles. Is this the year? Rock flag eagle, fly eagle fly. The Eagles, 3 straight picks in the first 13 picks of this Pros versus Joes chapter.
I mean, they're going to win the Super Bowl if that's what you're asking. I mean, NFC is terrible. I'm tired of hearing about Brock Purdy and all those, bozos in San Francisco.
You're going to have a long year, Terp, if you're tired of that.
Well, no, hold on. Let me stop. Terp, when do the Niners play the Eagles this year?
I'll be there. I think it's like week 11, 12.
Oh,
Those
okay.
circled on my
it is later in the
calendar.
season. All right.
They're big chirpers. They got a lot, big mouth so far. Debo and the boys. We'll see when they come to
You'll
Philly,
be
just like they
sobered
did
up
last
from
year.
Kentucky by then, Terp. Week 12,
Just like they did last year, they're going to get their butts whooped.
Terp firing shots in San Francisco tonight.
It's the last
Live-
show. I mean, we got to leave it out on the table
Yes,
tonight.
exactly. Yes, you have to do it.
I got to pick
Tony,
my winner, too. I already have it. It's already locked up. There's a couple teams here that might be chasing that.
All right, so we want to get into that before we sign off tonight. Remind me, because I will forget unless you bring it up.
I won't forget.
Okay, perfect. I want to bring that up because Terp called the winner last year, the GOAT District guys, John Daniel, Andrew Schellenberg, Dan Williamson, Theo Greminger. They won this whole thing last year, and Terp said in their draft they were going to win it, and then they ended up doing it. Second round tonight, Tony Pollard, the 202 to Jason Petropoulos from Brodo. Amon Ross St. Brown joined C.D. Lamb on Shelly Fossum's squad at the 10 spot. Garrett Wilson off the board to the FFMastermind, Michael Nazarek, Saquon Barkley to Chad Schroeder, Nick Chubb to Jeff Manns, Jalen Waddle to Vince Staffolino, followed by Devontae Adams to Krautwurst and Shope here at the 208. Derrick Henry, the second consecutive running back drafted by the FFPC Joe John Friedman in the 4 hole. And here we go. Darren Armani, baby. You got to love it. Kelsey and Mark Andrews is his start. Tight end. We're going to get into that in a second. Chris Olave off the board to Peter Puzo at the 211, followed by Jonathan Taylor falling to the 212 tonight to Gary Davenport from BleacherReport.com. Okay, let's talk about it. Farrell, I'm going to throw this to you right away. Kelsey and Andrews to Darren Armani in the first 2 rounds. Again, this is tight end premium. You can start up to 3 tight ends in the FFPC format, so I understand what Darren's doing here. I was, oftentimes I think back to the teams that would start off with 3 straight tight ends. Hasn't worked out here to try to win a free main event entry the following year in the Pros versus Joes. But Farrell, what do you make of the first 2 tight ends off the board tonight going to the exact same team?
We'll have to ask him if there was a running back or receiver that he would have gone for besides Andrews. But when he did this, if you take a look at the receivers based on what we talked about with Olave last night, what's going on with Cincinnati, you can understand Higgins slide. Keenan Allen keeps moving up the board, so people are more excited about that player than I am. So I think it makes sense. And Darren, he comes around and he gets Gibbs, who went much higher last night. Mm-hmm. Where did Gibbs go last night?
Oh, God, he went in like the 204, 205, something like that.
So, he's watching people take that player as they move up his boards, which he watches and prepares the report on a daily basis. And so he's in a situation where he's saying, I've got the 2 best pass catchers at 1.5 points. Now I'll get the ascending player in Gibbs, and I'm off and running. I think in this format, when there's a lot of very, very good receivers, I keep talking about Michael Pittman. I got to focus on the fact that I cannot climb him out of the 7th round. Last year, Terp and I collectively tried to climb Lockett out of the 9th round. In Terp's great explanation, and trite but true, those guys are league winners if they just come and do the same things that they did last year. So there's great receivers available for Darren, and what a wonderful start he's off to here.
He is off to an interesting start. I have to go back to the YouTube chat right now. Dave, you mentioned this last night that you were playing hurt a little bit, and Dave Gerzak wants to know, as he posted in the YouTube chat, is the hangover officially gone, Terp? Is it gone?
You could have landed a plane on my bed last night, and I wasn't waking up. I was out like a light. I feel back. I'm like 95%. Feeling a little extra spicy tonight with some of these picks, so I'm ready to go.
Terp, let's talk about extra spicy. Jonathan Taylor at the 212 tonight. Would you be hopping all over him at the end of the 2nd round like Gary Davenport did?
I feel like you got to buy the dip. I mean, he's not getting traded. I mean, all these reports are going to come out about these teams. They're going to offer contracts and all that stuff. But who actually has money that is going to spend the kind of money that he wants and he supposedly deserves right now with the season a month away? I don't think any teams are going to be lined up giving an asset and a draft pick to do it. He's going to be with the Colts. Maybe it gets ugly and he doesn't play, the first couple games, but he has no leverage, just like we've talked about 100 times. None of these running backs have any leverage. Josh Jacobs is being renegotiated now. Mm-hmm. You heard that today come out. Let's just stop. Get back in camp. learn with the rookie, develop. Anthony Richardson has a bright future. It just seems it makes too much sense. Balky having computer problems again. Our leader.
Oh, hey, Turk, how you doing?
It's just me and you again. You know, that's fun.
Sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry.
Back. He's back.
I have to post Chad's comment on when he was watching the Pros versus Joes.
My eyes were closing, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Farrell said after the broadcast.
Every time you said one more guest, I'm like, all right, I can breathe now. And he kept going, oh, we got one more. And I'm like,
I know.
I don't remember who it was, but he was rambling. I'm just like, dude.
No, he was very good for people.
I'm not saying he wasn't good, but he was still rambling. I'm like, I don't remember who it was. I was kind of delirious at that time. I'm like, dude, just put a cork in it. Let's get moving. Let's push this along. It was another guest and then another guest. I'm just
I know. And I always say, like, I sent out the email. I'm like, God, don't wait till the very end. We want to pepper these guests throughout. And then everybody showed up at the end last night.
Literally, everybody at the end.
I don't know.
Like, this is a quick show.
Right.
We were done kind of early. I'm like, all right, it's time to go to bed.
With Krautwurst and
Mike Shope,
Staffolino, and a broadcast professional like Jeff Mines and the Armani, and I mean this show could go to 3 a.m. Turp. Get it
easily.
Hurry up a little.
I got a lot more energy tonight than I did last night.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. We're through the third round, guys. I'll take everybody through it here. DK Metcalf to Gary Davenport at the 301. Patrick Mahomes will not be paired up with Travis Kelce tonight as Peter Puzo grabbed him at the 302. Fantasy Mojo's Darren Armani settles for Jahmyr Gibbs, as Farrell pointed out, at the 303 tonight. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 15, first receiver drafted by the FFPC Joe, John Friedman at the 304. Josh Jacobs is the first running back drafted by Shope and Krautwurst from the 5-hole. TJ Hawkinson off the board is the number 3 tight end, the number 1 tight end drafted by Vince Staffolino. Josh Allen pairing up with Stephon Diggs from Fantasy Guru's Jeff Manns there. T. Higgins to Chad Schroeder. Ramondre Stevenson to Michael Nazarek to go with Austin Eckler in his backfield there. Brees Hall, the first running back off the board, to Shelley Fossum. Calvin Ridley to Jason Petropoulos from BrotoFantasy.com, followed by Najee Harris, the final pick of the third round, to Peter St. Pierre. A lot of stuff to unpack here. Let's go to the deep end right now. Josh Jacobs, Farrell, at the 305 tonight. Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams in the first round, and then they get Jacobs, a guy who basically is one of the top, if not the best running back in fantasy last year, in the middle of the third round. I know before Barkley signed his contract, you were very skittish about drafting him in an FFPC league. What do you make of Josh Jacobs now that he has fallen to the mid-third? Is this still a good value for you here?
Turp alluded to it earlier. I thought Jacobs would go before Barkley because I thought the team would move quicker. Now the team's moving at a good rate. You're a few days in camp. Now they want to get the player in, and they're trying to do something. Turp has already written this player off no matter what his contractual situation is. Turp said he's not going to deliver like he delivered last year, and he's not a top 5 back in the league, according to Turp. However, he was last year, and last year was his best year ever. So I think this is a wonderful pick for a player, as Turk further points out, has no leverage in contractual negotiations, but they can put together some incentives. And if they put an incentive package together that would suggest additional money for similar output from last year, it gives the player something to aim for. I like Josh Jacobs in this situation in the middle of the third round. Last year, after last year's performance, I thought he was an end of the first round, early second round guy. So, you know, this is Krautwurst and the boys, right? They're paying less than it cost, along with what Chad Schroeder is doing. The players are falling to him at less than they cost. And, you know, that's a good place to be when you're in a draft. So I'm all for Jacobs. Turp is not. Turp, I'm speaking for you because I know you're suffering.
As good as Josh Jacobs was last year, nobody saw it coming. But the money
I saw it coming.
Josh Jacobs won no money for anybody at the end.
I saw it coming.
He got everybody there. That's factual. But when it came for the last 3 weeks of the season, he won nobody any money.
Yeah, well, sometimes, Turp, you get there and you have 19 other players. You can imagine, which is just fantastic to imagine what might happen. That's why you draft a full roster.
Terp, let me ask you about another running back here. The naked bootlegs. That's Shelly Fossum from the 10 hole tonight. CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown are her first 2 picks, but then she grabs Breece Hall at the 310. And I got to wonder, and this is something I've been wondering myself, where to draft Breece Hall when you consider that it seems like Dalvin Cook. I don't necessarily know if it's cash that's separating him from signing with the Jets right now. It might just be training camp and he doesn't want to go through it, which would make sense. But your thoughts on grabbing Breece Hall as early as she did, knowing the kind of perceived uncertainty of the Jets backfield right now?
I feel like now is the time that if you don't think that – a lot of people think Dalvin Cook's going to figure out a way to get to Miami. I hope that's not true personally for, A-Chain reasons and Jeff Wilson reasons. But – if he goes to the Jets, screws up Breece Hall, and he's going to fall. Well, he's probably going to move to the 4th, maybe end of 4th. By the time, live main events start this weekend, and then as we get to Vegas, if Dalvin Cook's there and he's getting a good, good chunk of change, Breece Hall could fall farther. But if you don't feel that way, Breece Hall is only going to rise up draft boards. If they don't get Dalvin Cook and they don't add one of these dusty veterans that are still out there, Breece Hall is going to be up there in the Jonathan Taylor, DK Metcalf, end of the second round turn by the time we drafted Vegas. So these are the guys you got to buy the dip on. If you're believers in their talent, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, we talked about last night. I feel like in these drafts, you got to take shots on these guys because you're never going to get them any cheaper if Dalvin Cook doesn't move, which he left and didn't sign a contract. So I still think he's trying to push Miami, but
there's something good about going home, fellas. There's something good about going home.
He should just go back to Minnesota. That'd be perfect.
I bring this back up on the GOAT District, like a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago or so, noted. Terp, Austin Martin's a Vikings fan, right?
He is.
And he said, what team could really use a running back like Dalvin Cook? The Minnesota Vikings. It's like the best thing I've heard on any podcast so far this offseason. It was great.
It's spot on. He said it, and I just kind of piggybacked off it because it makes so much sense. You look at all these spots out there. Like, if you're Miami, you're going to pay Dalvin Cook. I was reading like the contract demands that he has, $30 million and 15 or 16 guaranteed for what? He's had a very solid career. Still young, still got some juice in the tank, but running back's not getting paid. He's not in the upper echelon anymore. He's not.
I still think the smartest guy as far as running backs this offseason, as far as getting paid, was Aaron Jones when he had this massive, highest cap number of running back has ever faced in NFL history. He restructured, took a significant pay cut, but you know what? He's still making $5-6 million this season, and he's not looking for a job. And I think that was very smart by Aaron Jones and his agent.
I agree.
Let's get through the 4th round, guys. Joe Mixon, the 2nd consecutive running back drafted by Peter St. Pierre. Kyle Pitts off the board at the 402 to Jason Petropoulos from Brodo Fantasy. Lamar Jackson starting at quarterback for Shelly Fossum. George Kittle to Michael Nazarek. Deebo Samuel, his real-life teammate, goes to Chad Schroeder as his number 3 receiver. Miles Sanders at the 406 to Jeff Mans from Fantasy Guru. Amari Cooper to Vince Staffolino to go with Jalen Waddle on the perimeter there. Christian Watson, the 3rd receiver drafted by the deep end guys. That's Shope and Krautwurst. Aaron Jones right off the board after that to John Friedman as his 3rd running back in the first 4 rounds. Jerry Jeudy to FantasyMojo.com. That's Darren Armani squad. That's his first receiver he's drafted tonight. Travis Etienne and then Justin Fields complete the 4th round. Etienne off the board to team number 2 tonight. That is indeed Peter Puzo's team. And then you're looking at Justin Fields going to Gary Davenport as his number 1 quarterback. Okay, a lot to unpack in this round here. Let's go to where do we want to start here? How about Miles Sanders? We got a comment in the YouTube chat right now about Jeff Mans getting this is from the Fuffle Master, or as Farrell calls him, Foufle Master. This has to be the easiest for Miles Sanders by Jeff Mans tonight. Miles Sanders at the 406, running back 15. Farrell, is that the spot you want to be in business with Miles Sanders? Did Jeff Mans get a good deal on his 2nd running back here in the 4th round?
Do you think he meant earliest instead of easiest?
Could be the earliest. I'm going to look up his ADP right now, and again, we always cite FantasyMojo for this. Miles Sanders running back 20 at the 601. And I'll tell you this too, like if you go back and watch the Pros versus Joes over the years, Jeff Mans is a guy who is always getting his guys. He is not afraid to grab guys early, and that's what he did tonight, Farrell, with Miles Sanders.
He does this every day for a living, and he really doesn't care what anybody else is doing. He's going to pick the players he wants, and that's the way you should draft, and that's the way you'll be very happy with your team. And I have no complaints about Miles Sanders. I like his landing spot. I think with what's going on down there offensively, they'll have to lean on him, and I think he can answer the bell. So there's no reason that Miles Sanders in front of Madison, in front of some of the guys that went in the later round that we'll get to, he's a more impressive player than those guys. I'm all for Miles Sanders. I'm all for Jeff Mans.
Mm-hmm. The Fouflé Master also said tonight, Terp, 4 and 5 look like exact opposites tonight, and they're drafting next to each other. That's Vince Staffolino, and then of course Adam Krautwurst and Mike Shope that's John Friedman from the 4, and then the 5 is Mike Shope and Adam Krautwurst tonight. Terp, what do you make of that? Because they literally are opposites: running back, receiver, running back for Friedman, receiver, running back, receiver for the deep end guys.
I don't mind either team. In my opinion, though, one's much better than the other, and that's Team 5.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually 2 teams here that I think could make the final cut for the overall winner so far. A lot of things can change, but
which teams are those? So we I want to be watching.
As of right now, it's Team 5 and Team 11.
Okay, so that's Shope and Krautwurst at 5, and then Jason Petropoulos from Brodo Fantasy at 11. We'll get to them in a little bit.
But it's fantastic guys that we go 20 rounds, because I think
a lot of things can happen. I think
if we take a look at something, Shelley Fossum was able to wait on quarterback. You might find that odd when I say drafted one in the 4th round, but she's able to wait on quarterback, but get a quarterback that might outscore the first 3. And then if you just look at receiver core, we haven't got to the 5th and 6th round, but I can see it. And I love this group of receivers better than anyone else's receivers in this draft so far.
It's very talented. Lamb, St. Brown, Kirk, and Ayuk there. Let's get through the 5th round. Some tight ends go off the board in this round, guys. Gary Davenport found his starting tight end in Darren Waller. Dallas Goedert off the board to Peter Puzo. After that, at the 502, DeAndre Hopkins joining Jerry Jeudy in the wide receiver room for Darren Armani, as he now has 2 receivers to go with his 2 tight ends and Jahmyr Gibbs. Alexander Mattison, the 4th running back drafted by John Friedman in the first 5 rounds. DJ Moore, the 4th receiver drafted by Mike Shope and Adam Krautwurst. Drake London off the board is the number 3 receiver for Vince Staffolino. Evan Engram will be starting at at tight end. God, not quarterback. Evan Engram will be starting at tight end for Jeff Mans. Kenneth Walker, the 2nd running back drafted by Chad Schroeder. He gets him at the 508 tonight at the running back 19 position. Terry McLaurin joining Garrett Wilson in the wide receiver room for Michael Nazarek. Christian Kirk, the 3rd wideout, selected by Shelley Fossum. Mike Williams to Jason Petropoulos, and Cam Akers, the 3rd consecutive running back drafted by Peter St. Pierre. I have to bring up this message I got from Mike Shope, WGR 550 radio in Buffalo, who is drafting with Adam Krautwurst tonight. He said in confidence, he's going to share with us a couple of players that they're kind of hoping that fell to him in the draft tonight. Now, Mike said this in confidence. I'm going to take that to meaning it's no longer in confidence because the draft is in the 6th round, right?
Love that.
So I apologize to Mike if I'm spoiling anything. But I think they have given this stuff away on their own podcast before. They liked Mark Andrews. They liked Jahmyr Gibbs. They liked Christian Watson. If you guys notice, Darren Armani was not CC'd on this email that Mike sent me, but Darren Armani got Mark Andrews and Jahmyr Gibbs instead of Shope and Krautwurst. However, they did get Christian Watson in the 4th. Mike Shope said if they could get all those guys after getting Cooper Kupp or Tyreek Hill in round 1, he said you can tell the audience tonight on the Pros vs. Joe's FFPC YouTube channel that they're pretty psyched. Well, I don't know if they're pretty psyched anymore because they had the opportunity to draft Andrews and Gibbs in the 2nd round. They chose to draft Devontae Adams instead, and then neither one of them came back to him in the 3rd. However, they did get Christian Watson in the 4th. What do you make of I know Terp's a big fan of it, Farrell. What do you make of the deep end start here with 4 receivers and 2 running backs through 6 rounds?
Which team are we talking about? I'm sorry.
This is the deep end. FF1, team number 5 tonight. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Watson, Moore, Jacobs, and Dobbins.
Well, we talked about Krautwurst and these guys before. They know exactly what they're doing, and so they've got Jacobs, Hill, and Adams. Adams is sliding for no apparent reason. Watson, we talked about what we didn't like about him last night, with left a whole lot to like. I think DJ Moore, these guys remember what – if Fields is ever going to be the quarterback he should be, and the offensive coordinator is promising that the ball is going to fly out of his hand this year, then it's going to go through DJ Moore, so I can live with that. Dobbins, that's kind of I would be curious to ask those guys if they were waiting on Williams. I think they probably would have referred Williams, and then they had to take Dobbins.
That could have been. That would make sense for sure. Terp, as we look at the rest of the 5th round, anything stand out? I guess the team I really want to talk about is Gary Davenport. When you look at his first 5 picks tonight, he's got 2 receivers, but he's got an elite running back, he's got an elite quarterback, and an elite tight end.
There's really nothing negative to say about his team. I'm not the biggest Dalvin Cook fan, but, I mean, you buy the dip with Jonathan Taylor. DK Metcalf's obviously number 1 receiver in ascending offense. Justin Fields has QB1 potential. Darren Waller has top 3 potential. Michael Pittman, there's going to be some growing pains. I mean, I love the player, but there's going to be some growing pains. I'm not as high on him as most. Definitely not as high as Farrell, but I think, if Richardson takes that next step, it's just a question of there's going to be some ugly games mixed in there. He is going to be a very, very tough weekly guy if Richardson doesn't show you a lot early on.
But if he does, and Pittman is the number 1 guy,
100%. Number 1 by a large margin. There's nobody close.
If he does, just a modicum of success as a rookie quarterback, doesn't Pittman get what he got last year?
He should.
Okay, and if Pittman gets what he got last year, those 99-ish catches as your number 3 wide receiver. And I think you're going to need that. I interpret a question for you. Justin Fields that early, 2 rounds later, we're looking at Lawrence and Herbert. Wouldn't you have rather had Lawrence and Herbert and done a position player there?
I would have rather had Herbert 2 rounds later. Lawrence, I like Lawrence. I'm not discounting him in any way, but Fields just has that, big time rushing upside. If he takes the next step as a passer with DJ Moore, obviously a healthy Mooney, they just paid the tight end, running back stable of unknown a little bit, but I just like Fields a little bit more than Lawrence. I don't know if I'd push him all the way up to the 4th round, like you said, but definitely right in the 5th round range would be happy for me. But he was never coming back to the guy, so.
So when you draft Fields there, I think you start the draft by saying, I'm going to have Justin Fields as my quarterback.
100%. You realize that he's probably not coming back to you.
Yeah, so that's he's already thinking about that before the draft even starts. Okay.
Yep.
6th round complete, guys, here. Chris Godwin off the board at the 601 to Peter St. Pierre. Herbert to Jason Petropoulos as his number 1 quarterback. Brandon Ayuk to Shelley Fossum as her number 4 receiver. Joe Burrow starting for Michael Nazarek in the 9 hole tonight. Trevor Lawrence right after that to Chad Schroeder. Javonte Williams goes to Jeff Mans tonight. There's been a lot of people talking about the value falling to Jeff Mans from Fantasy Guru. He gets Javonte Williams as the RB21 at the 606 tonight. Tyler Lockett, the 4th receiver, drafted in 6 rounds by Vince Staffolino. We already talked a little bit about J.K. Dobbins going to Shope and Krautwurst, followed by Damian Pierce to John Friedman as his number 5 running back. Deontay Johnson, the 3rd receiver, drafted by Darren Armani. Rashad White and Dalvin Cook complete the 6th round. Rashad White off the board to team number 2. That's Peter Puzo. And then Dalvin Cook at the 612 tonight. Terp kind of weighed in on Dalvin Cook tonight, Farrell. There's a couple of running backs in this round, and we'll get to the quarterbacks that Dizzle is commenting on in the YouTube chat right now. But your thoughts on Dalvin Cook going as high as the 6th round tonight? Is that too early?
You know what? Terp has won me over to his thinking on Dalvin Cook. Terp has illuminated the aspect of what he's asking for contractually, which I haven't paid a great deal of attention to. So, Dalvin Cook may be a little bit disconnected from reality. He may not understand his role in the league, which is always dangerous for a player looking for a new place to play. And you know what? I think last night I might have been drafting Cook. I think tonight I'm going to let him pass.
Rashad White, as Biplab Mandel and Dave the Dizzle Gerzak are commenting on in the YouTube chat right now, Terp. White normally goes in the early 6th. He falls all the way to the late 6th tonight. Is there a reason why you think Rashad White's falling? And what is your advice to FFPC drafters when they see Rashad White fall a half or maybe a full round past ADP?
He's a guy that I have not been on that much. He possesses, the ability to catch a ton of passes. He's going to get a ton of targets. Obviously, there's not much behind him. Chase Edmond, Keyshawn Vaughn. Not guys that are really exciting in any way. Every camp report that I read, he's going to be the guy. The offensive line, they weren't healthy last year. It was kind of a disaster. I just don't really think he's that efficient of a runner to warrant, that kind of, draft selection. I mean, I'm passing him most of the time. It depends on the build. If the build, calls for it and it's a, you're starting a heavy receiver type of situation and he's there, I'm fine with it. If he was there in like the late 6th, early 7th, I'm not going to budge, but he's been going a lot higher. So it's a pass for me. I also want to go back to something you said a little bit ago. You were talking about the value of Jeff Mans that people were talking about. I think they're being sarcastic because Miles Sanders is not a value. Mm-hmm. Evan Ingram, not a value. Javonte Williams, not a value. Kadarius Toney, not a value. Love his first 3 picks, but after that, I know he's a go-get-your-guy guy, and I respect that, but none of those guys are values. I mean, Toney has been free, falling in drafts. Javonte Williams, he's starting to move up. I mean, obviously positive camp reports. Ingram is not going in the 5th round in FFPC drafts, and I think that's the earliest I've seen Miles Sanders. So he's definitely a go-get-your-guy type of, setup, but I don't know. It's not for me.
Biplab Mandel commenting that Vince Stafflino and Chad Schroeder, who are on both sides of Jeff Mans in this draft, he says they're crushing Jeff Mans right now in that 7th spot for Mans. Probably not the greatest draw for Mans in this draft, but he's grabbing his guys, and maybe he knew that. He knew the success that Stafflino and Schroeder have had over the course of a decade plus in the FFPC, and he knew that if he was going to win this league, it was going to have to be by getting his guys. That could be what he's looking at there. I don't want to scroll all the way back in the YouTube chat, Farrell, but the Dizzles talked about all the great quarterback value here in the 6th round with Lawrence to Schroeder, Burrow to Nazarek, and then Herbert to Petropoulos here in the 6th. There is a lot of good value there. Do you like Herbert best for Petropoulos among those 3 guys, given that he already had drafted Mike Williams?
Yeah, Herbert's my guy for this, and Lawrence would be my next guy because they'll love Burrow. But hey, I don't know what the availability is, and I when we're in this situation with those kind of players orbiting around Burrow, I'm going to get the guy that I think is going to be available. And I dip. You can dip your way into week 6 without a quarterback, and it also is in a situation where you look at these other receivers, and if you guys want to look up Trevor Simeon's history as a starting quarterback,
I'd rather not.
Why don't you go ahead and look that up because you can't feel really good about your Cincinnati receivers. Now Joe Burrow is one of the toughest guys in the NFL, and so I expect him to get back. I expect him to try to come back before he's even healed, and he will have an argument from that training staff about when he may get on the field. So, hey, I don't know.
Week 1, he'll be out there.
All right. So let me throw this. I'll play devil's advocate on this, Farrell, with Joe Burrow to you, who falls to the 604 tonight. Is there something to be said for Burrow coming back from this injury? Everything's hunky-dory. He's got plenty of time to recover from the regular season. Obviously, the Dizzle just pointed out in the YouTube chat that Patrick Mahomes had a similar injury, played 1 week later, actually a worse injury, and played 1 week later. And Burrow has 6 weeks essentially in order to get back from this injury for week 1. How concerned are you about not necessarily Burrow's health, but a re-aggravation for Burrow where you would be concerned with drafting Jamar Chase in the top 2, drafting T. Higgins in the 2nd round, drafting Tyler Boyd or Irv Smith or whoever, from Cincinnati. How concerned about a re-aggravation are you? Because I don't think anybody's necessarily concerned about this injury. To me, the thing that I'd be concerned with, Farrell, with Burrow is a re-aggravation.
Well, and you would have reason to do that based on the fact of how often he gets hit by the lack of pass rush or pass blocking that this offensive line has provided him. They've got better. They got better last year. They went from 70 to like 40. But he's still a punching bag in that offense. And sure, Terp's saying buy on the dip. That's an excellent fantasy football strategy, because we're in this format, we're going to be able to pick up 2 other quarterbacks that can cover us early. And if Burrow does come back in the right situation, boom. So would I want to draft Chase here with the second pick? I probably wouldn't. And maybe that's because I'm too conservative, or maybe that's because I like all the other players on the board that are going to be drafted. I like so many of them that I'm willing to go with another receiver in this first round. It's just a thought.
Joe Burrow normally going at the 504 in the FFPC Best Ball Tournament, where you can win a $200,000 grand prize at just a $125 entry fee. Similar format to the Pros versus Joes tonight, as Burrow falls a full round, 604, to Michael Nazarek from FFMastermind.com. Michael Pittman, who we talked a lot about tonight, he goes off the board to the Gary Davenport from Bleacher Report as his number 3 receiver. David Montgomery, the number 3 running back, drafted by Peter Puzo. Marquise Brown, the 4th straight receiver drafted by Darren Armani, and a couple of receivers after that. Mike Evans, John Friedman, as his number 2 wideout. Jackson Smith and Jigba as the number 5 wideout to Shope and Krautwurst. James Cook off the board to Vince Staffolino as his number 2 running back. We already talked about Kadarius Toney going to Jeff Manns, DeAndre Swift, and James Conner after that. Swift to Schroeder, Conner to Nazarek. David Njoku to Shelley Fossum, the FFPC Joe, at the 7-10 tonight, followed by Alvin Kamara and Brandon Cooks to wrap up the 7th round to Petropolis and St. Pierre, respectively. So Armani here, guys, and Terp, I'll throw this to you. From the 3 spot, hit the 2 tight ends early. He got Jahmyr Gibbs, and now he is just peeing yellow, as the kids say, as he just drafted his 5th straight receiver here, Terp. What do you make of this team construction? Kelsey, Andrews, Gibbs, and then Judy, Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, Marquise Brown, and Dotson.
I remember last year he came on the show and he drafted a lot of Cowboys, and I ripped him because I thought his team stunk. It's the polar opposite this year. His team is really good. I mean, start off with Kelsey, getting Andrews to fall where he fell. I'm sure he was a little tingled when Mahomes possibly could have came back to him, but getting a consolation prize with Gibbs is no problem. Drafted 5 receivers in a row. Love that. Nothing negative to say about him. He's rising up my rankings too about a possible overall winner, because he's doing a great job so far.
And John Terry, a guy who has won numerous grand prizes in the FFPC, has already said, who, by the way, drafted in the Pros versus Joes this year, he said Team 3 is winning. That is Darren Armani. Chad Schroeder, who is also drafting tonight from the 8 spot, he says Armani is crushing this from the 3 spot. I do want to go back and Farrell, let's talk about Shope and Krautwurst's team. Dave the Dizzle Gerzak is commenting on how much they love receiver here, because through 8 rounds, nary a quarterback to be found, nor a tight end. Only 2 running backs. The rest are receivers. Hill, Adams, Watson, DJ Moore, Smith and Jigba, and Johnston here for the deep end so far. What do you make of that start with all those wideouts?
These guys have been talking about these rookie players on their podcast and drafting in their dynasty teams, and they're not going to pass them. They've been scratching that itch to pull that trigger on these young receivers, and good for them. Again, they're getting the guys that they want. They're getting their guys. I don't think that you know, of those 2 rookie receivers, I don't think you needed both of them. It probably would have been wise to grab a tight end, but we'll see.
12 tight ends now off the board. They could have had Dulcich there if they wanted in the 8th round. They chose not to. Let's get through the 8th round, guys, as we kick things off with Michael Thomas, the 3rd straight receiver drafted by Peter St. Pierre. Jordan Addison from the Minnesota Vikings to Petropolis. Antonio Gibson joining Breece Hall and Shelley Fossum's backfield. Gabe Davis is going to be a member of the FFMastermind crew from Michael Nazarek there. Back-to-back tight ends. Chad Schroeder goes with Pat Fryermuth as his starter. Dalton Schultz is the selection for Jeff Manns as his backup. Elijah Moore and the aforementioned Quentin Johnston after that to Staffolino, and then Shope and Krautwurst. Deshaun Watson, the first quarterback selected by John Friedman. Jahan Dotson, Treylon Burks, and Cortland Sutton complete the 8th round to Armani, to Puzo, and Davenport, respectively. So that is the 8th round here, guys. Let's go back to Shelly Fossum's team here, Terp. Brees Hall in the 3rd, which I guess I can get on board with when you're trying to win the league. But then she doesn't take another running back until the 8th round, where she gets Antonio Gibson here. So there's a lot of volatility here at the running back position. And obviously, the lazy analysis is, well, if they hit, she's looking great. But what are the chances that one or both of these running backs hit for her here?
I mean, I love Antonio Gibson. He's my number 1 overall running back owned right now. So I'm very high on that pick. Brees Hall, like we talked about in this league's different from other leagues. It's not a basketball championship league. It's not a fantasy pros league. It's not a main event league. All you're doing is trying to come in first. If you don't come in first, nothing matters. And based off the structure of this team, this is a team that's trying to go for first. You're betting on Brees Hall. Mm-hmm. You're betting on Antonio Gibson. You're solid everywhere else. You have possibly the QB1 in Lamar Jackson. You have 2 stud receivers followed by 2 upside guys with Kirk and Ayuk. I like the David Njoku pick. Nothing negative to say at all. You're betting on Brees Hall. This team's probably going to live and die by Brees Hall. Yeah. And if Brees Hall is healthy and Dalvin Cook doesn't come to town, this could easily be. There's 4, 5, 6 teams in this league that could win it. This is by far, out of all the drafts I've seen so far, there are some really, really, really good teams.
Farrell, look at team 2 for me here. That's Peter Puzo's team. And he just got his first stack with Patrick Mahomes. He drafts Sky Moore in the 9th round here. But starting off with Chase and Olave, he still managed to grab an elite quarterback and an elite tight end with Mahomes and Goddard. And quite frankly, his running backs aren't lacking here. Etienne, Rashad White, David Montgomery, and then he's got some value here, or potential value, with Burks and Moore. We haven't not talked about Peter Puzo's team here from the 2-hole, but I'm not seeing a ton of weakness, and I could see a path where this team could end up winning this league based on these first 9 picks.
This player I've been waiting to be picked, and it would have helped him with his stack, is the player that I would have put in instead of the Sky Moore in the 9th round. And it was also the running back that I was hoping that Shelley might be able to grab as her 3rd. And Schroeder got him, and we can talk more about that. But I would have probably between his 8th and 9th round pick, I would have liked to have seen a running back there. I think there's some pretty good ones that were still available, and one that gave him a fantastic stack. So I would have played that differently.
Terp, what do you make of Brian Harris's comment here in the YouTube chat? It was a tiny stack. He views the tiny stack of Mahomes and Moore as a detriment when they could have had George Pickens there in the early 9th. Did they make the right call?
They must have been watching Twitter today, because George Pickens, that catch, out of this world. But I don't agree with him. I think Sky Moore in that offense, you have Patrick Mahomes throwing you the ball. There's no receivers right now. Sky Moore's getting a lot of positive press. There's no one out there for them to add. There's nowhere out there for them to trade for. A bunch of unknowns, Richie James, Ross, MVS. I like Sky Moore picking. It makes a ton of sense, because if Patrick Mahomes is going to go off and it's not Kelsey, Sky Moore's probably the leading candidate right now. So
yeah, and those receivers vacated, those receptions vacated by Juju Smith-Schuster will have to go to someone. So
Deontay Johnson isn't going anywhere.
I'm fine with Sky Moore there. It's 2 receivers, 8 and 9. He could have had Moore, and he could have had the Chiefs running back. That's how I would have played that. It's Burks, your guy Burks, which you won't say anything bad about. You can't particularly say anything good about him, so you haven't said anything about him. But there was just
100 times out of 100, I take Treylon Burks over Isaac Pacheco every single time.
Well, you'd be wrong every time.
I don't mind Isaac Pacheco as a player, but
I mean, I can't help it that you're engaged with. You want to fail slowly.
I'm loyal to my guys. Treylon Burks, I'm just going to go down.
Burks,
swinging with him.
It's just
he outscores. I said it on Twitter the other day. Treylon Burks will outscore DeAndre Hopkins.
No, I
this
don't
year.
care how many places you say it when it's wrong on every social media.
We're going to revisit this. We're going to revisit this at the end of the season, and we're going to see. If I'm a bonehead, I'll raise my hand, and I'll say I'm a bonehead.
We'll see, and you're not a bonehead. You just got.
My wife tells me I'm a bonehead a lot, so I mean,
you got Treylon Burks. I do have some attractive hat wear for you, though.
I have a big head. Nothing fits my head.
Well, okay, all right. I'm gonna attempt to bring this back down to earth here.
Okay. Wheels are falling off on the final show.
All right. Yeah, they are really. And we have a comment from John Terry I want to get to, but I want to get through the 9th round first. AJ Dillon to Gary Davenport from Bleacher Report at the 901. Sky Moore to Peter Puzo, followed by Anthony Richardson's the #1 quarterback drafted by Darren Armani. Greg Dulcich to John Freeman. Tua Tagovailoa pairs up with Tyreek Hill nicely for Krautwurst and Shope here at the 5 spot. George Pickens to Staffolino, followed by Samaje Perine to Jeff Mans. Isaiah Pacheco to Chad Schroeder, followed by Tyler Higbee, the backup tight end to George Kittle here to Michael Nazarek. Khalil Herbert and Jerick McKinnon back-to-back to Fossum and Petropoulos. And then Juwan Johnson completes the 9th round here. Tight end 14 and the starting tight end for Peter St. Pierre. Terp, let's get into, and this is something that John Terry just pointed out. Speaking of playing for first, he wants an explanation for Javonte Williams at the 606 and then Samaje Perine at the 907 tonight. That is Jeff Mann's team, a team we've been talking a lot about tonight. Terp, what do you think there about those 2 picks?
I have no explanation. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know people are going to say, well, you're getting the Denver backfield, but Javonte Williams, I know he's getting a lot of positive press in camp, but if he's healthy and if he gets, he's back and continues to rise up draft boards, P. Ryan's going to be useless. He's not bringing much to the table. To me, you got to bet on one of those guys. If you believe in Javonte Williams, you took him in the 6th round earlier than I'm pretty sure he's gone in any draft so far. Backing him up in a round that's not the 13, 14, 15, 16, later pick type of situation, I think it's just a flawed system. I'd be very surprised if this works out for him.
Hey, Terp, is the issue there the fact that you took Jeff Mans took Perine so early? Would you have been cool with this strategy if it was like Perine in the 12th or 13th?
1,000%. If that
where'd he go last?
I probably still wouldn't do it. But I mean, P. Ryan's going to be there. He's going to be annoying. I think he's going to be okay this year. He's not, like I said last night, he's not a league winner in any way. But if Javonte Williams isn't 100% and is not ready to go, P. Ryan's really the only guy there. So to me, you got to bet on one. If you don't believe in Javonte Williams, you take P. Ryan. If you think Javonte Williams is back, and most people do right now because he's getting pushed up draft boards, then P. Ryan can't even be on your radar.
Farrell, to your point, Samaje Perine went at the 901 last night to Rick Raymaker.
So what's the difference?
About a half round.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the fact that Perine would be available later because he hasn't been. He's been moving up the boards. I don't know. We're dealing with a coach and an offensive coordinator, OC Lombardi, who are reunited in Denver, and they like 2 running backs, and they like their running backs to be fleet of foot and a great pass catcher, and they also like a big bruiser, and they like to use both of them, just like they did in New Orleans with Kamara and Ingram. So why is this Perine pick so polarizing in this conversation? I don't think it's that big of a deal. If the thing that's a big deal in round 10, can we talk about round 10, Bucky?
Yes, go ahead, Phil. Yes, because there's a pick I want to talk about anyway.
Is you talk about a slam dunk? Let's go back to old naked bootlegs with Miss Shelley Fossum. Look at Zay Flowers there. And there's the pick. When players were drafting C.D. Lamb, Tarp talks about league winners, C.D. Lamb in the 9th round of his rookie year. Zay Flowers is the 2023 C.D. Lamb, and he will bring skill set to that Baltimore offense that will make you think that Baltimore is a passing team, because he's going to do things from all over the field. It's going to be fantastic. And there's your guy in a double-digit round that'll make
10th round. I could not agree more. There's nothing negative to say about anything you just said. I mean, all positive press so far in camp. Surprised he's not moving up more. Bateman not practicing. Odell, obviously coming off major injury. Nobody really outside of a Dusty Nelson Aguilar that could challenge. It makes so much sense that Zay Flowers should be moving up draft boards, but he's not, and I don't understand why. That offense, they keep talking about the fast pace. I would take Zay Flowers in the 10th round of every single draft I'm in if I had the option.
When she took Khalil Herbert in the 9th, that's when I got a little bit shaky because I said, oh no, he's not going to get back to her because I've been watching her draft, and I said, oh, that's where you need to take Zay Flowers, and I think she was very fortunate it came back, and Team 11 taking Schuster, and I don't know how they've taken a lot of older receivers. Well, they took Addison, a rookie. In other words, I don't understand how you pass up Flowers for Schuster, especially when you're looking at your opponent and realizing we're going to let her stack Jackson and Flowers. That's not a good deal.
I can see a world where Flowers should go above Cortland Sutton 8th round, Quentin Johnson 8th round, Elijah Moore 8th round, Michael Thomas 8th round,
Gabe Davis
7th
round. Gabe Davis, right? Gabe Davis
8th round, Kadarius Toney 7th round. You could even put him up in the category of the Mike Evans JSN range, in my opinion. He should be going up there.
You don't have to wait to preseason. Go to college highlights and just watch what he did last year running against cover 2 defenses. And if they try to do that in the NFL, and oh my goodness,
he's a guy that you do not want to have any positive preseason games. You don't want him to catch a long pass or have a Lamar Jackson hookup that's going to make it flash, because that will move him up draft board. You want him to just have like positive practice stuff you want, but you don't want him to have like anything too crazy, because he's a guy that'll move up 2-3 rounds with one hookup from Lamar Jackson in a useless preseason game.
Terp, you're just a damn genius, I got to tell you.
Thank you.
Well, and let's utilize some of that genius here, Terp, because there's been a lot of chatter. Let's go back to Chad Schroeder's team from the 8th spot here tonight. And you look at what Biplab Mandel and Dave the Dizzle Gerzak are saying. Gerzak says, oh my God, Chad got Rashad Penny too. This is after he took DeAndre Swift in the 7th round. And then Biplab says, can't believe this is Chad's first draft.
Shocking. But just absolutely shocking.
I think the true question here is, and Jay Wimmers is posting it in the YouTube chat. He said, when we were talking about the P. Ryan, Javonte Williams conversation, Terp, would you say the same on Chad taking DeAndre Swift in the 7th and then Rashad Penny in the 10th?
This is my beloved Eagles, so I'm very biased when it comes to this answer. But I would probably say the same thing. I'm betting on one of them. The offensive line is the best in football. Some running back is going to be a monster. The question on which one. I know it's a little different than the Broncos because the Broncos' offensive line is not very good. We're talking about the best offensive line in football, 100% healthy, a Super Bowl contending team. It should be in a lot of positive game scripts. So with Swift, with Penny, it makes a little bit more sense, but I'm still probably just betting on one. But my bias says, Jack can do whatever he wants.
But is there something to be said that this is a closed 12-team league where you don't have to beat everybody in a national competition, which to me makes handcuffing a little bit more, drafting the backup a little bit more valuable? Terp, don't you think that there's more merit to doing that with what you saw Chad Schroeder do with the Eagles, with what you saw Jeff Manns do with the Broncos?
If he had a 0 RB build or a hero RB build, I would say yes. But he only has 3 receivers on his team right now. So that's a big, he's an injury away from being really hurt at that position. You're starting to run out of quality pieces right now. It's starting to get to the wide receiver dead zone when you're drafting Juju and, Romeo Dobbs and guys like that. It's so much unknown. So I wouldn't do it just for the build. If he got him, based off like a Saquon Barkley and didn't take Kenneth Walker and didn't take Pacheco, then okay. But the build with only 3 receivers is dangerous because, Higgins and Samuel have their own questions. There's no slam dunks there.
All right, so let's Scott Hoyt, a guy who is a long-time, very successful FFPC champion. He wants to know in the Facebook chat, Farrell, what's Kupp's status after injury today? And SportsIllustrated.com actually reported that Cooper Kupp did indeed leave Rams practice early today with an apparent injury think back to last season, an ankle injury is what basically cost him the last 2/3 of the season. Rams head coach Sean McVay said, quote, he looked like he came up a little bit in a red zone route. I just know they told me he was out for practice. Kupp is going to be turning 30 years old this season. Obviously, that's the meal ticket for the Rams offense this year. And the question is, too, with Cooper Kupp falling to Chad Schroeder at the 108, perhaps the injury had something to do with it. Farrell, would you be a little bit skittish about drafting Cooper Kupp in the top 5, a spot that has been very familiar to him in FFPC drafts over the last 2 months?
Yes, especially with this news. And, I'm not particularly skittish about injured players. However, when you got to pay a first-round draft pick for it, would I just as soon, if I had been drafting from that spot, have gone with CD Lamb? I could live with that over Kupp. Yeah, there's just so much talent in that round, guys. You don't have to take any risks. So I would probably assess it that way. Mm-hmm. I don't want to miss any time. I don't want to miss any. I don't want any guys missing time.
And nobody wants that. And I think as we look at the 11th round here tonight, there is the possibility that this is the most quarterback and tight end rich round we have had in 6 live Pros versus Joe's draft so far, guys. Geno Smith to Gary Davenport to back up Justin Fields, followed by a pair of running backs, Brian Robinson to Puzo, and then Jamal Williams to Armani. A couple of tight ends here, Gerald Everett to John Freeman, Sam Laporta to Krautwurst and Shope. Kirk Cousins is going to be the first quarterback drafted by Vince Staffolino. Russell Wilson off the board to Jeff Mans. Dalton Kincaid backing up Pat Freiermuth to Chad Schroeder. Aaron Rodgers, the signal caller, set behind Joe Burrow to Michael Nazarek from FFMastermind. Jaylen Warren is the 4th running back drafted by Shelley Fossum. Cole Kmet backing up Kyle Pitts for Jason Petropoulos. And then Raheem Mostert, after ignoring the running back position since round 5, Peter St. Pierre gets another one here in round 11, the 44th running back off the board. That is Raheem Mostert. If you are watching the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour for the first time tonight, thank you. We appreciate it. It's a great show. Farrell and I do this year-round every Friday at 10/9 Central. YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook for the FFPC channels. You can also access full on-demand streaming anywhere you get podcasts. That we got it streamed out to. I'm not kidding you. At least 24 podcast networks. So there's no excuse for you not to find it. Video, audio, whatever you want to do, you can listen to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour year-round and on demand. Let's get back to the 11th round here, guys. A lot of tight ends, a lot of quarterbacks going off in this round. Terp, forgive me if I asked you this previously because we're in our 6th draft and they're starting to blur together a little bit. You think Dalton Kincaid is going lower than he should for an FFPC tight end premium format? Once again, he falls to tight end 18 tonight at the 11:08. I understand there's a lot of people that don't like drafting rookie tight ends, but everything we've heard from a lot of pundits out there say that Dalton Kincaid is not going to be playing tight end this year. He's going to be playing a glorified wide receiver position, Terp.
First of all, the chat's going to assassinate you soon. They're trying to get you to scroll down.
I'm doing it right now. I got it.
You're about to get knocked off the air by these guys. They're about to,
Really.
Back to Dalton Kincaid. There is no world ever.
My beard was in the way. I apologize. My beard was covering up the board. It's not going to happen again. We got room.
This will make someone very happy. There's never a world where I would ever take Irv Smith over Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah.
0% chance. Dalton Kincaid's a guy that I'm surprised is not moving up, draft boards a little bit in the tight end premium league with Josh Allen. It makes too much sense. He has a ton of upside. He's getting a lot of good press in camp. Dawson Knox is there. That is annoying. But if you believe that he's going to be playing the slot, the big slot or whatever you want to call it, he could be a league winner. I mean, he has a ton of upside. Talented. They drafted him high. They traded up to get him. It makes so much sense for him to be a valuable fantasy, contributor. So he's a guy that 11th round, that if you just waited on tight end, didn't take any, I'd be thrilled to have.
What about Farrell? And they're on the clock right now in Mike Shope and Adam Krautwurst from the Deep End Fantasy Football Show. Sam Laporta, first tight end off the board. They did not take a tight end until the 11th round. And I got to tell you, there's some upside. They've gone with a lot of rookies tonight. If you look at their draft, Smith and Jigba and Johnston in the 7th and 8th rounds. Now Charbonnet and Laporta in the 10th and 11th. What do you make of Laporta as the starting tight end in this particular format?
Oh, the same thing I made of him last night, Balky. He's speed, size, ready to play. Going to be a rookie tight end, yes. Can he stretch that out? That by game 8, he's playing not like a rookie, but by a seasoned player because he's got the athletic skills to do it. Yes, and I like that pick, and I like it. I like what they stacked it with in the 12th round. Dalton Kincaid, Terps all over it from our favorite second town outside of Philly and Louisville. Dalton Kincaid, a native of Las Vegas, and he's been a prized player. The scouts, agents, front offices could not wait for this player to get out of school and to be in the NFL. And congratulations on the Bills for getting him. I can even warm up a little bit with Cole Kmet here in the 11th round. Gerald Everett, 47 catches last year. That's serviceable in this format, and maybe he gets a little more. So, yeah, it's a great round for tight ends.
Farrell, I know you were rooting for another running back to go to Shelly Fossum here at the 10th spot, but kind of like what she did here in the 11th round as her 4th running back, a guy like Jaylen Warren, who is going significantly later than Najee Harris, who went in the 3rd round tonight. But I think Jaylen Warren in the 11th round, this is not a guy that is simply an injury away type guy. Regardless of Najee Harris's health, Jaylen Warren is going to have a role in that Pittsburgh backfield.
Turk feels he will. He talked about it last night. I looked into Warren and the expectations that the club might have, and I have to agree with him. I think Warren is a player that I'm going to target in these double-digit rounds. Probably won't get him by the time we get to Planet Hollywood. But nevertheless, Shelley's doing very, very well with this draft.
All right, let's go back to the 12th round, which just got completed tonight. Jared Goff backing up Jalen Hurts for Peter St. Pierre. Tyler Algier as the 4th running back off the board to Jason Petropoulos from Broto Fantasy. And then a slew of wide receivers here. Jamison Williams to Shelly Fossum. Jacoby Myers to Michael Nazarek. Odell Beckham to Chad Schroeder as his number 4 receiver. Has not drafted a receiver since the 4th round. Gets another one tonight in the 12th round at the 12:05 with Odell Beckham. Isaiah Hodgins, a little bit early for, like we always have the Giants wide receiver conversation at the end. We're going to have it a little bit earlier tonight, guys. Isaiah Hodgins at the 12:06 to Jeff Mans. No surprise there. He is #getting his guys. Damian Harris off the board is the number 4 running back for Vince Staffolino. Chig Okonkwo, back-to-back tight ends for the deep end. That is Laporta in the 11th, Okonkwo in the 12th. And it's wide receivers the rest of the way. Alan Lazard to John Friedman. Rondale Moore off the board to FantasyMojo. Rashee Rice to Peter Puso. And then Tyler Boyd, the final pick of the 12th round, is the number 5 receiver drafted by Gary Davenport. Terp, what am I missing on Rondale Moore? Because the more I read, the more I listen to, it seems like everybody and their mother is suddenly on Rondale Moore here in the early double-digit rounds.
The talent's there. The upside's there. That he just can't stay healthy. That's a big if right now. I mean, 13th round or 12th round is a fine slot to take him in a best ball league. He would be just a nightmare in a managed league. I just don't know how you would ever actually click the button for him to start. But in a best ball league, you're going to get the spike weeks. If he stays healthy, you saw they should get a ton of targets. There's not a lot of guys there. Marquise Brown, obviously Trey McBride's a guy I like. Not much else behind him. So a team that's supposed to be bad, Kyler Murray's not going to be back for a while. They should be down in a lot of games. That will lead to targets, obviously. But I'm worried about Jonathan Gannon, running the show in Arizona. But I like Marquise Brown. I told you Trey McBride. Rondale Moore's a guy that I'll draft a little bit, but I won't be too overexposed to.
Rondale Moore, guys, might be out of the league after this year.
Wow.
This team has never let him do much. He runs very, very few patterns down the field. After he catches the ball,
he might be a factor on another team. I don't know if he'll ever be out of the league, but good coach could unlock him.
He could use a change of scenery, and he could use some explosion after he catches the ball. And this career in Arizona has been a disaster for him. And the players 100%. Drafted before him, drafted after him, give higher upside. We keep talking about how you want to be the best of 12. Adam Thielen is going to catch 65 passes and probably 5 touchdowns, and Rondale Moore won't get anywhere near close to that.
And Dave the Dizzle Gerzak weighing in on the Rondale Moore conversation here in the YouTube chat. While I'd love to keep talking about that, I want to get back to a running back that we have not talked about over the course of Pros versus Joe's Terp. Tyler Algier tonight goes at the 12:02 to Jason Petropoulos from Brodo Fantasy. And I don't necessarily know that we need to spend a whole lot of time talking about Tyler Algier, but I think it's worth bringing up. Everybody has already anointed Bijan Robinson as a can't-miss guy, and certainly the history of a player being drafted as high as he was in their rookie year backs up a pretty big season that he should be in store for this year. But if he's not, and if he is a bust, and if he misses, I wonder if Tyler Algier could be a pretty significant guy here in the 12th round, given that this dude rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, man.
You always try to find RB2s on a team that are secure, that no matter what, will get some time if the guy goes down or the guy's inefficient. It's hard because there's a lot of backup jobs right now that are you're just guessing. Minnesota, McBride, Chandler, who's in Dallas. You can keep going on the list of teams. If anything happens to Bijan Robinson, there is no doubt that Tyler Algier, you saw last year, he was a very, very good fantasy player for a while. Does he catch passes? No. But with Arthur Smith, you know they're going to run run the ball a ton. I'm a minority here. I'm not on the Bijan hype train. I think he's going to be very good for a long time, but I just think there's a lot of guys that I would take over him. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to fade him completely. He'll be on, a good amount of my teams, but when it comes down to, big drafts, when we get closer to Planet Hollywood and Vegas and some of these fantasy pro drafts, he's probably a guy that I'm going to probably pass on.
He's going to have to score the ball to deliver the value. And we've already.
I don't think Tyler Algier is going away either. I think he's still going to get enough carries to be a pain in the butt. You've
got an offense coordinator here that enjoyed what Tyler Algier did last year. And he was a well-recruited, well-respected player out of Brigham Young. And the locker room likes him. Yeah, he isn't going away. And if you take the fact that you don't have a dynamic quarterback, I think he's a little better athlete than everyone gives him credit for.
Very good athlete, not a good quarterback.
He's not Terpes. He's a good athlete, but he's not the athlete that the running quarterbacks are in the league.
No,
and he's not the drop back passer that Herbert and others are in this league. So what is he? He's a guy to manage the team, and he's going to you got to remember where this group came from. They came from Tennessee. They want to run the ball 500 times a game, 500 times a year, and how fascinating that would be with Robinson and Algier.
He's going to manage the team very well to 4-13 this year.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But you know what? If they are 4-13, that means they're not scoring the ball, and that means you're not going to get the points for. You're not going to get enough points for Robinson.
That's what we're betting on this year.
Unless you, pardon me.
That's what we're betting on this year.
I will be
Bijan train.
I will be the witness and enjoy a tomahawk steak on one of you guys if you'll allow me to partake in that steak dinner bet. If that's what we're going to do.
That everyone realizes, Balky, that the steak dinner loser is not only buying my steak dinner but your steak.
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
everybody knows that.
Whatever it takes.
I'm down. I'm down for that. I'm also down for our first guest of the evening. You know him from WGR 550 Sports Talk Radio in Buffalo, New York. He's also one half of the dynamic duo for the Deep End Fantasy Football Show with Adam Krautwurst. You follow him on Twitter at Shope Talk. Please welcome in the pride of Buffalo, Mike Shope, drafting from the number 5 spot tonight. Mike, welcome into the broadcast, man.
Hi, Balky. Hi, guys. How's it going tonight?
It's going great. Now, I don't know, and I know you were streaming, but I kind of spoiled your secret. Of the email that you sent me of the players. You said, hey, don't mention these guys. But I figured, once they're off the board, we're good to talk about them. So let's talk about this for a little bit. You're hoping for Andrews. You hope for Gibbs. You like both those guys. You had the opportunity to draft one of them at the 208 tonight. You decided you were going to pass on both, and then both of them get taken by none other than Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com. How disappointed were you and Adam not to get either of those guys to fall back to you in the third?
Like maybe 2%. I mean,
okay, that's not bad.
At the most. We passed on Andrews because Adams was a steal. We thought at 208, and then let him figure it out. So Gibbs was whatever happens, happens. But we were happy, and we're happy for Darren too.
Yeah, and I think, you get Watson, another guy that you guys were targeting as well. Did you guys, because I know you said either Hill or Cup in round one, was Hill the pick for you because of the Cup injury today?
A little bit, yes. Like, I think I would have been on Cup except for that injury, but Adam told me about it, so we took Tyreek instead. We were sort of planning for Tyreek because we thought maybe Hill would or Cup would go earlier. So we were sort of building around the idea of taking Tyreek Hill, so it worked out okay. But the injury is a little bit worrisome.
I think it is. And I think we were all talking about, like, at the start of the show, oh, my God, Chad Schroeder gets Cooper Kupp at the 108 tonight. But there is something to be said for that because we don't know what the injury is. We don't know how serious it is. And Cooper Kupp, by the way, not a young man anymore. He's coming into his age 30 season. So I think there's something to be worried about there. Speaking of things to be worried about, a lot of people would have not have taken Mike Shope, Josh Jacobs in the third round tonight. You guys did. Can you tell us about your confidence in him playing early this season?
Yes, I think those guys are probably going to play. Like, they have no sort of out that makes sense for them, in my opinion. I'd like to hear the other people's opinion about this, but Jacobs,
I agree 100%.
Yeah, a correlation with Adams notwithstanding, and then sort of thinking that like Taylor, Jacobs, what else are they going to do? So for me, Jacobs at 305 was fine.
We're talking with Mike Shope from WGR 550 Sports Talk Radio in Buffalo, New York. He also is one half of the duo from the Deep End Fantasy Football Show, which you can watch on Player Profilers Network each and every week with Adam Krautwurst. So let's talk about these rookies here, Mike. Smith and Jigba and Quentin Johnston in the seventh and eighth round. You get Tua Tagovailoa to pair with Tyreek Hill in the ninth. But then you go back to Charbonnet and Laporta, and then you hit on Kendre Miller in the 13th. I'm just kind of curious and maybe enlighten our viewers in this. Do you see value in drafting rookies at this point in the season? Because you got a lot of them on your team here.
Yes, because the way we started, I thought the receivers we had sort of underneath the foundation of the team. If you draft JSN and Johnston later, and then hoping for stacks to go with, not with Johnston, but with JSN, like with Geno, we didn't get Geno. I feel like you can sort of take advantage of the rookies later on in your draft that way and have the floor with Adams and Tyreek and DJ Moore and hopefully Watson with some upside too. That made sense to me.
Mike, the other pick that I think is intriguing here, and this is a guy that I actually drafted in the Scott Fish Bowl, Kyler Murray at the 1408 as the 22nd quarterback off the board tonight. Can you enlighten the viewers a little bit on what your expectations are for Kyler Murray this year, given that he's coming off that injury?
Well, the thing about him will be, when do they start to sort of go for it? When is he ready? If they start 0-5, he may not play at all. Mm-hmm. If they start 0-1 and his knee feels better, then I'm up here. But I feel like, then maybe he plays 10 games. There's the Caleb Williams element with him. I'll take McBride here just to get that done.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what pick you're going to do here. So it's back-to-back Cardinals, Murray and McBride, baby.
I like McBride a lot this year because second-year tight end, even if it's check down backups, I feel like he's good, and we were late on tight end. But Murray for me if I'm the Cardinals, I might give it a month. And if I'm winless, I'll just try to figure it out for Murray to sit the whole year. But we can pick another quarterback or two along the way in a 20-round draft. There's huge upside if he actually plays. You have the Javonte Williams story right now where he's back from a multiple ligament injury. Murray is one ligament. So who knows with these things, like it's tough to predict it. But even if they're terrible and he plays, there could be some real upside in points there.
Mike, you just had your finger on the mouse to take Trey McBride as the 24th tight end off the board tonight at the 1505. I'm going to humbly request you on behalf of our listener and a guy who you have competed against in many FFPC leagues over the year, Biplab Mandel. He's asking you to take your finger off the mouse and place it firmly back on the pulse of Buffalo Bills football. He wants to know, who is the wide receiver 2 for the Bills this year, Mike? Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Gabe Davis? Is it going to be Khalil Shakir? Is it going to be somebody else? What's your thought process on here? And how are you handling, more importantly, how are you handling the wide receiver 2 for the Bills in drafts this season?
It should be Davis. But the two questions there are, who is, like, if you take all the targets baked into the Bills offense, we have Cook ramped up, you have Kincaid ramped up, you have Hardy and Sherfield and Shakir. What happens to Knox? What happens to Davis? Like, Davis, I think, is good. They're pushing that he had a bad ankle injury last year. So I think for the contested catches piece and the downfield, like, his depth per target last year was really good. I feel like Davis should be the answer. But on the other side of that is, how much does he get paid next year or in 2024 after that? So I think the answer is Davis. But it's a really complicated, interesting backfield and wide receiver pool here that if you ask 10 people, you could get 10 different answers.
Finally, nice to see Gabe Davis dropping a little bit in drafts where you can get some value on him, something that you couldn't do in years past. Final question for you, Mike, before you let you go back to the draft. No tight ends for you and Krautwurst here in the first 10 rounds, but then you've drafted 3 in the last 5 rounds here, Laporta, Okonkwo, and McBride. I feel like we've all given you some pretty good grades on your tight ends here so far in this draft. Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on not necessarily the early or even mid tiers of tight ends this year in the FFPC, but maybe a little bit on the back end, the 3rd tier, the 4th tier, because it seems like you guys might be valuing those a little bit more because you're constructing a pretty good tight end room here.
To me, the tight end position is everything in these. Like, if you're drafting 11, 12, what do you do? Do you reach on Kittle or Pitts? What do you do? Or Waller went 401 in the main event last week. Like, what do you do if you're on that end? Last year it was the other way around, where if you were on the front end of the draft, you didn't have, and you had to sort of figure it out. And so for us, we were ready on Waller tonight. If you watch our stream on the deep end, you'll hear us talking about that. I mean, you know, after yours is over, by the way, Eric.
Oh, like, thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah, of course. That. Like, I'm on your show. I didn't see you on you might have been in the queue tonight. I didn't see you there. But like, on the front end of these drafts, tight end is easy this year. Last year it was backwards. So, I mean, Waller is the one. Waller is the one right now that everybody wants, no matter where they're picking. Like Goddard, it's soft. Pitts, did you see him run? It's soft. I mean, it's just sort of a little bit in between on those guys. So for us, we tried to get Waller. We tried to get Goddard. They both got in front of us in round 4, I think it was tonight. And so, you know, we'll just wait it out and take value otherwise.
So, Mike, remind our listeners, because I know the deep end is part of the Player Profiler Network now. You guys go live, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. You guys go live, is it every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern?
In theory, yes. But it depends on Adam's kids' soccer schedule. And, you know, my kids are 13 and 12, so we're sort of just at the mercy of their coach's schedule. August, like, kids sports are pretty much done by August 1st.
That's true. Absolutely.
So we'll be on every night.
That's fantastic.
Not really, but it's Tuesdays. It's Tuesdays at 9 if we can do it. But you sort of have to make it work.
And we will make it work because it's worth making it work. Follow Mike on Twitter at Shope Talk. That's SCHOPPTALK, along with Adam Krautwurst on the Deep End Fantasy Football Show. Remember to check that out, in theory, Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock on the Player Profiler Network, anywhere you get podcasts as well afterwards. Mike, thank you so much for joining the show tonight. I know you're on the. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do your walk off here. You're on the clock. You just took Trey McBride in the 15th. Who's the pick in the 16th?
Zamir White, just in case. If you like your team, take the handcuff. If you hate it, take somebody else's handcuff.
So you like your team, you're taking Zamir White. Viva la Raiders for Mike Shope and Adam Krautwurst here tonight. Mike, thank you so much. Be good, man. We'll talk to you again real soon, dude, and we'll see you in Vegas.
Yes, absolutely. Thank guys.
Thank you. Mike Shope, ladies and gentlemen. Follow him on Twitter at Shope Talk. Listen to him on WGR 550 Sports Talk Radio in Buffalo, as well as on the Odyssey app. You can check him out there. And then, of course, the Deep End Fantasy Football Podcast on the Player Profiler Network. Okay, guys, I'm going to cite some picks here in the 15th round here, and I think they're worth talking about. Vince Staffolino at the 6th spot. Let's go to Farrell first on this one. Terp, I do want you to weigh in on this. I have heard this narrative that Aaron Rodgers loves throwing to the tight ends in Green Bay. And for me, over the course of his career, it happened with Jermichael Finley kind of till he got hurt. Outside of that, it really hasn't happened. Bubba Franks was I don't even know, quite frankly, if I look back on it, I don't even know if Rodgers and Bubba Franks ever crossed paths where they're ever on the same team together. So for me, like this narrative, like, oh, Aaron Rodgers loves his tight ends. I don't know if he does. Tunyon had that one really good year, but that was touchdown inflated. So I don't necessarily know. And there's a lot of love for Tyler Conklin in New York right now based on Aaron Rodgers wanting to throw to the tight end. Terp, are you seeing that?
Definitely seeing it. It's just a question of I'm seeing it from the rookie. They're getting a lot of positive press. Jeremy Ruckett, I think is his name.
Rucker, yeah,
4th, 5th round. He's been getting a lot of positive press in camp. Haven't heard much from Tyler Conklin. I don't think that's anything to really watch, early on. But like you said, Robert Tunyon's big year when he had all those touchdowns is kind of, it
was all touchdowns. I mean, that's the reason he scored all those points.
People are being blinded by that. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't like Tyler Conklin as like a third receiver on a punt tight end build type of setup, but I'm not going out of my way to get him. I feel like guys like Melcole Hardman, Corey Davis are better options in that passing game.
In deference, Balky, to two-packer, when you have Randy Cobb on your roster, why do you even need a tight end?
And he's back off the pup. He's practicing for New York. I can start following the Jets. So many of my favorite Packers are on that team now. So
with our prior guest coming on, does that mean we don't get Krautwurst? We don't have Krautwurst?
No, I know. Adam is. I don't think he's available tonight. The thing is,
that's a disappointment. But now you were going. You wanted to go deep. On the tight ends. You were talking to our guest about the fourth tier of tight ends. You'll be happy to know, Balky, from NFL personnel notices that Indianapolis worked out 3 tight ends today. One of them, Ricky Seals-Jones. So hope springs eternal, Balky.
The greatest tight end, hybrid tight end that never was.
Let's go real deep.
The notorious RSJ. Of Arizona Cardinals fame and others. I think wasn't he in Cleveland for a while too, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
We'll see what happens in Indianapolis. So that is our thought on Tyler Conklin here. What about Jake Ferguson, Farrell here? 1509, tight end 26, third tight end drafted by Michael Nazarek, but this dude could be starting for the Cowboys this year.
He could be, in that use of the package with 3 tight ends. He did very well with it. It was very similar to what they did down in Miami that took the ball out of the hands of Gesicki and put it in the hands of a variety of good red zone pass catchers for the Dolphins. It's still to be determined how he'll look as a starting tight end. But, the 15th round, I think that's a good pick.
15th round.
Is Higbee his only other tight end?
No, he has George Kittle.
He's going to be
in the 4th round.
Yeah,
that's where we're at on that.
He's through and he's fine.
All right, so let's get into what else I want to talk about in the 15th round here. Back-to-back Browns. I feel like we've talked about Donovan Peoples-Jones and Jerome Ford quite a bit, so we won't need to focus on them. Terp and Farrell, I don't know if you saw the Sunday broadcast with myself and Aiden LaCorey, but I made the reference, the analogy to Brock Purdy's ADP in FFPC drafts to the G.I. Joe Retaliation movie where The Rock and Adrian Pilecki and the other actor whose name is escaping me right now had to travel up this well, this deep well where they're hiding from the Cobra forces that bombed the G.I. Joe camp in the Middle East. They had to go up step by step, and it was a very long and arduous process. And I felt like that is Brock Purdy's ADP right now, where it is an arduous process, but he keeps rising up Terp, what do you make of Purdy right now? He goes at the 1508 as quarterback 23. Everything has been very positive about him so far. We know what we can do when he's healthy. To me, this makes like a very nice pick here for Chad Schroeder behind Trevor Lawrence in the quarterback room.
100% pairs him with Debo. It makes total sense for the build. I mean, Purdy, I'm surprised he's not moving up draft boards a little bit more. I'm not the biggest fan of him, coming off that major injury, but the coach loves him. Coach hates Trey Lance. He's not going to be anywhere near the field. Purdy just
Coach doesn't hate Trey Lance, but Brock Purdy won the job, and he loves Brock Purdy, and that's his quarterback. But we talked about this player and why he wasn't being drafted. Didn't we, when we started, guys like the first and second of these, wasn't Purdy not drafted or a 20th round pick? He hasn't even been picked in every one of these. Am I correct with that, Balk?
Well, yeah, I don't know if he has. I'd have to.
I'm pretty sure he has been picked late, but I mean, I get what you're saying.
But in all of them, Terp, I don't know if it's been in all of them.
I would be surprised if he wasn't. I mean,
okay.
I was surprised he wasn't being picked at all, and he was available with some of the guys that were going in front of him. I mean, he was hanging down there with Ritter,
Stafford, Murray. I mean, you're looking at guys that Derek Carr.
I mean, look at who he's got to throw the ball to. Just McCaffrey alone.
Just McCaffrey alone with two stud receivers, and then obviously one of the best tight ends in football.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's nuts he's going this late.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, Terp, this is your Eagles. So I'll ask you, given DeAndre Swift's injury history, given Rashad Penny's injury history, is Kenneth Gainwell kind of a must for people in the 15th round? Like what Jason Petropoulos got from Brodo Fantasy at the 11 spot tonight. 15-11, Gainwell. Man, I really like that pick there.
I don't mind the pick at all. I mean, he has the trust of the coach. I mean, you saw last year in the Super Bowl leading up to it, they really did believe in him. But we go back to the Chad Schroeder, Swift, and Penny pick. If it was me, I probably would have done like a Penny Gainwell because Gainwell kind of does the same things, and Swift does them better. I mean, Swift is a much better pass catcher. Health is a question. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of betting against Swift if you're taking Gainwell. Taking them both is kind of counterproductive. Doesn't really make that much sense to me based off a build. But I have no issues going Penny, Gainwell, or just, living and dying with DeAndre Swift taking the next step. Gainwell's a guy that I'll be pretty much even with the field with, but nothing too crazy.
And that's the thing is like the Dizzle says, Gainwell is going to be great if the other guys get hurt. And I know it's like, oh my God, I got to wait for two guys to get hurt for this guy to be worthwhile. Well, like Swift has been in the training room a lot. Rashad Penny
been in there more.
He's been in there more. Exactly. So that's why I think like, it's not a normal two guys that have to get hurt. It's two guys who have been very brittle, and it's the 15th round. So,
the thing that's really tough with the Eagles is if it was a stationary quarterback or a guy that wasn't, Jalen Hurts scores so many rushing touchdowns, so many 1 yard, they get behind him, push it in. That just kills running backs on that team. I'm not sitting here saying there's not going to be a guy that emerges because I believe it's going to be Swift, but I'm okay with Penny. I'll have plenty of him too. I won't have that much Gainwell just because, you saw Miles Sanders last year. He was a very good value in fantasy drafts. He was pretty solid the whole year. But Jalen Hurts just steals so many of those 1 yard touchdowns, those 2 yard goal line that should be going to the running back on a normal offense. So that's where the worry is.
And they didn't outlaw the Philly push in the NFL, so they can keep doing that.
They didn't outlaw it. I'm surprised every team doesn't do it. It doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't. It's almost unguardable. Like unless you don't jump off, unless there's a false start and you're 1 yard away, you should get it every single time.
You should.
Unless the quarterback trips.
They stole the whole design of the play from the Canadian Football League. It's the most
wherever they stole it for. I hope they never get rid of it.
The greatest thing imported since maple syrup. I mean,
but Farrell, don't in the CFL, don't the defensive linemen have to play off the line of scrimmage too?
1 yard off.
Yeah. So like then you get that head of steam going there. It's really unstoppable. Yeah.
Short yardage quarterback is a wonderful position in the CFL.
I'll tell you what a wonderful round is tonight. It's the 16th. We're going to take you right through it now. Leonard Fournette kicking things off to Peter St. Pierre. Rashid Shaheed goes to Jason Petropoulos, followed by Dawson Knox to back up David Njoku for Shelley Fossum. Puka Nacua. We have a Puka Nacua sighting hats off to Derek Brown and Fantasy Pros. I know he's excited about that. Puka Nacua to Michael Nazarek there. DJ Chark off the board to Chad Schroeder after that. Gus Edwards to Jeff Manns. Isaiah Likely going to be the number 3 tight end drafted by Vince Staffolino. We already heard the Zamir White pick by Mike Shope. Chuba Hubbard to John Friedman. He has not drafted a running back since round 6. He drafts another one tonight in round 16. That's his 6th running back. Michael Mayer, the rookie tight end, backing up not only Travis Kelce, but Mark Andrews for Darren Armani's team. Hunter Henry off the board to Peter Puzo. And then Alec Pierce selected at the 16-12, the 76th receiver drafted tonight, and the number 6 receiver for Gary Davenport from Bleacher Report. That is what we're looking at here. Puka Nacua, let's talk about him, Terp. We have not seen him in a whole lot of drafts so far in Pros versus Joes, but we see him in the 16th round tonight. And the last report I saw, sounds like they're giving a lot of the playbook to him, and he's understanding it. The opportunities there. I mean, he's
All
only
positive.
He's got to beat Van Jefferson. I think he can do that. Puka Nacua could be one of those rare late round rookie receivers that actually makes a difference in redraft this year, man.
Let's start off with the Cooper Kupp news we talked about earlier. I didn't hear that until you just said it. My heart skipped a beat. Hopefully him walking off the field, minor stuff, one of my highest owned players, especially early in drafts, so I hope everything's okay with him. Sit out the preseason, rest. You don't need to prove anything. But back to Puka. A lot of potential in the kid. I mean, you got to beat out Van Jefferson in an offense that they're going to be in some games where they got to score. That defense isn't what that defense used to be. Stafford is going to be chucking the ball around a ton. Obviously, a ton of Cam makers this year you're going to see. If you don't believe in Tutu Atwell and you don't believe in Van Jefferson, you should be drafting Puka at this spot almost everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to beat out Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson's going to play. He's got to beat out Skoranek, the big slot receiver.
I don't think that'll be very difficult.
No, it won't be very difficult. Skoranek is very good between the 20s, very sure-handed. He couldn't catch the ball in a red zone. He's got Miles Sanders' disease that turned Terp off in 2021. The thing about Puka, you call him a kid, you know, he's a great developed athlete. He's 6'2". People think he's a little smaller than that. He's not. He's got very good size. And he played a little running back at Brigham Young. He played a little running back, and he rushed for almost 400 yards in his college career. He's tough as nails, and he will catch the ball in the red zone. Injury a little bit, missed a couple games last year, but significant percentage of targets and catches and good yards after the catch. So I think that's where I think that's his slot. Van Jefferson's going to be on the field, so you guys drafting in the 20th round probably need to go ahead and draft him. But, yeah, that's what's up with that.
We'll see what happens with Van Jefferson in this draft. And then we're going to talk about the running backs that happened in the 17th round. Some interesting picks here, guys. Gary Davenport leads things off with Kareem Hunt, followed by Chase Brown, the backup, and maybe de facto backup after the Travion Williams injury today. I have not read the latest on that, but I know it wasn't great. Chase Brown going to Peter Puzo. Malik Davis in Dallas goes to FantasyMojo's Darren Armani. Bryce Young, the 3rd quarterback drafted by John Freeman. Jimmy Garoppolo, the 3rd quarterback drafted by Shope and Krautwurst, followed by Deneric Prince in Kansas City, the number 5 running back selected by Vince Staffolino on his squad tonight through 17 rounds. Richie James, another hot pick here, goes in the 17th round tonight to Jeff Mann. Sam Howell off the board, backing up Trevor Lawrence and Purdy for Chad Schroeder. John Mechie to Michael Nazarek, followed by Keontae Ingram to Shelley Fossa. Mac Jones, the 2nd quarterback selected by Brodo Fantasy Football's Jason Petropoulos. And Curtis Samuel wraps up the end of the 17th round here tonight by Peter St. Pierre. And Farrell, that's where I want to start. Curtis Samuel in the 17th to Peter St. Pierre. You know, I know there's a lot of love for McLaurin. There's a lot of love for Dotson. Can there still be room for some love for Curtis Samuel on this new Washington offense this year that's being coordinated by former Chiefs Super Bowl winner Eric Bieniemy?
I would have to think so, because the numbers suggest from last year that this player is not through. He battles through injuries. He's had some injuries. He's missed some time. But I would have to think that, like when we got our good friend Scott Connor last night, he talked about how he was trying to get 2 games out of players that were drafted here between the 17th and 20th round. And I would have to think that Curtis Samuel will deliver you 2 to 3 scoring games.
Curtis Samuel, Terp, I don't know what your ownership is on him at all, but I've been looking at him late in a lot of my drafts. I've kind of been shying away from him, but now I'm wondering if I made a mistake. How does Samuel stack up on your best ball drafts right now?
Great late round target. You saw some juice early in the season. He tailed off as the season went on last year, but I mean, if you believe in Sam Howell and you believe in that offense, I mean, he's a very, very solid wide receiver 3 with no real competition behind him. Obviously, has Dotch and Terry McLaurin, ahead of him. But I like Samuel, late target. I mean, Bieniemy's going to get away. You're going to figure out a way to get him the ball creatively. I believe in Eric Bieniemy. So
he helps a young quarterback a great deal.
He helps a lot of short passes. They should get him the ball in space. It makes a ton of sense to be drafting him this late.
Terp, what about Malik? I know Darren Armani's on the clock right now. What do you make of Malik Davis here in the 17th round?
He's a guy that I've been drafting a lot lately. I mean, I just feel like even if I know there's word that Ezekiel Elliott's going to come back there on a pretty much a free contract. That's really what he deserves right now. But I mean, Malik, I had to take my shot there. It was there. He laid it up for me. I was trying to avoid talking about him enough. But
you and John Terry, man. I mean, just hammer.
But Malik Davis, I think he has some juice. I think he should be Tony Pollard's backup this year. And obviously, Tony Pollard, you're worried about the workload. That's probably the only reason he's not going higher in drafts right now. People are worried if he's going to break down. Malik Davis is a guy with plenty of juice in the legs and a guy that I've been targeting a bunch.
Farrell, I just read this. Ian Rappaport tweeted out that Travion Williams suffered, or is believed to be suffered, a mild ankle sprain in training camp. He's expected to miss a few weeks, but those few weeks could be precious as he's trying to win the backup job behind Joe Mixon in Cincinnati. Now it may come down to Chase Brown and Chris Evans for that backup running back. Peter Puzo shot his shot with Chase Brown here at the 1702. Is that the running back that we need to be targeting in Cincinnati behind Joe Mixon right now?
I think so, and it's not injury dependent. I think that the people in Cincinnati really want to see this player make it. I think they like him. They drafted him despite some of his poor testing numbers. And another Canadian import. We got to appreciate that. His brother plays safety. I forget where his brother landed. His brother's a little better football player, but I think they want to make. Sometimes when you see very successful teams, and they'll want to make a player out of a guy, and that's what they want to do out of Chase Brown. So he's going to get some opportunities.
Chase Brown's brother is Farrell. He's not a running back, right? He's a
safety, or maybe
Philadelphia Eagles.
Maybe
Sidney Brown, safety for the Eagles. You're right. Thank you, Terp. 3rd round pick this year. Chase Brown going to the Bengals. Let's get through the 18th round.
I didn't really forget where he was playing. I just wanted to see if Terp knew.
It was the Terp test. #Terp test. Luke Musgrave leading things off in the 18th round. 1801 to Peter St. Pierre. Darius Slayton, another Giants receiver, to Jason Petropoulos. Logan Thomas off the board to Shelley Paulson here at the 1803. Justin Ross, a guy who has had some time with the starters in Kansas City, goes to Michael Nazarek. Jelani Woods, the 3rd tight end selected by Chad Schroeder. Chase Edmonds, another backup running back. He goes to Jeff Mans tonight. Tank Dell, 1807 tonight to Vince Staffolino. Ty Chandler and Noah Fant, back-to-back picks here for Shope and Krautwurst, and then John Friedman. Ryan Tannehill, Jaden Reed, and C.J. Stroud complete the 18th round. Tannehill to Armani, Reed to Puzo, and then Stroud to Davenport. The question that we have in the chat right now, and this is not really a question, but Dave the Dizzle Gerzak pointing out that per our very own Aiden LaCory, who co-hosted the show on Sunday night, said that Tank Dell was actually undrafted in a few Pros versus Joe's leagues. He goes in the 18th round tonight, Farrell. What do you make of Tank Dell here? Seems like a strong pick for Vince Staffolino.
Vince drafts all 20 rounds in tough competition. I like this player. I like this player's landing spot. I like the player's skill set. And I think what he'll do for the quarterback is pretty impressive for 2 young players maturing together. So, yeah, I think this is a good pick. Towards the end of the season, we're going to see we're going to see a bigger target share to this player.
Terp, I have heard a lot of people talk up Justin Ross, and one of the things that like my spidey sense always tingles at this time of year is people gushing over and falling all over talking about players that really aren't going to be relevant for redraft purposes or maybe ever in fantasy football. And I'm wondering if Ross is one of those guys this year. Is he fool's gold in the 18th round, or is he worth a shot at this point?
I think he's definitely worth a shot. The thing you got to realize, though, is if you look at their depth chart and guys he has to beat out to make the team. Tony, if he's back by week 1 or if he's going to be on the team, whether you like it or not, he's going to be there. Sky Moore isn't going anywhere. MVS, not going anywhere. Then you have a lot of questions after that. Rashid Rice, the rookie they drafted, not going anywhere. Richie James, Ross, Justin Watson, who's a special teams guy. Are they going to keep 7 receivers? Justin Ross is a guy that has to have a big preseason to make the team. I love him. Great story. Was extremely talented at Clemson before the injury. Had to work his way back, grind all his way back. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope. But in the 18th round, I don't think it's a bad pick because you got Patrick Mahomes. It's always a positive. And if Patrick Mahomes wants you on the team and you're impressing during preseason, which it seems so far that he is, getting time with the ones, it might make sense to take a shot. And he's definitely a guy that I've been mixing in, not a ton, but here and there, and definitely a guy with upside, obviously playing with the best quarterback in the game.
19th round in the book, Zach Ertz to Gary Davenport, Clyde Edwards-Helaire off the board to Peter Puzo, Jalen Hyatt, another Giants receiver at the 1903, the 84th receiver selected tonight, and he is the number 8 receiver selected by Darren Armani. Cade Otton going back-to-back tight ends here for John Friedman with Fant in the 18th, Otton in the 19th. Greg Dortch to the deep end guys. That's Krautwurst and Shope there. Joshua Kelly, the backup running back in Los Angeles, goes to Staffolino. Terrace Marshall to Jeff Mans, followed by Devontae Parker to Chad Schroeder. Pierre Strong and Michael Carter, pair of running backs here. Strong to Nazarek. Carter to Fossum, followed by a couple of receivers to end the 19th round. That's McCole Hardman now with more New York Jets to Jason Petropoulos, who I believe is a Jets fan. And then Sterling Shepard off the board from the New York Giants going to Peter St. Pierre. There is some questions and a debate going on in the YouTube chat right now, Farrell, that Brothen GG21, I'm probably butchering that handle, but he thinks Terrace Marshall is a great pick. James Young countered, I don't know. He seems to be the odd man out in the Carolina wide receiver room when he's going off practice reports. Where do you fall in on Terrace Marshall, a guy that I know a lot of people were high on as a rookie, but that has waned over the course of 3 years now in the league, Farrell?
Yeah, he's the same thing that they're talking about with Rondell Moore. Is he past his time for putting up the numbers that he has to put up to stay in the league? I have no problems with the 19th round pick for the talent in that player. I don't think you're going to get much out of it. I like Hyatt better in this round. I probably like most of the receivers with the exception of Shepard. Has there been more news about Wan'Dale Robinson being injured and not recovering? Because in my mind, that would make a better pick there than Shepard. And I love Sterling, but it's not sustainable when he plays. So
I'm looking up the Robinson news right now. Terp, can you weigh in on Terrace Marshall?
Pretty sure he's still on the PUP list. And I don't think he's going to come off, for a little bit. Sterling Shepard to me is just not a 30th round draft pick.
What a player he's been in his career, but he just
great. Nothing
he
negative
just
to say about his career.
Cannot
Warrior,
keep
a guy that's battled through injuries, but just no.
And some of these running backs down here. Let's go back to who's going to help us for 1 or 2 games. Let's take a look at Boston Scott. Let's get another Eagle on the team.
I want to bring up the 20th round here, guys, as we are about to complete the 2023 edition of the Pros versus Joes. Just 3 picks left on the clock right now. Israel Abanikanda, the day 3 rookie from the New York Jets, goes to Peter St. Pierre. Zach Evans, another day 3 rookie from the Los Angeles Rams, goes to Jason Petropoulos from Broto Fantasy Football. Michael Wilson, the rookie out of Stanford, goes off the board to Shelley Fossum here for the Naked Bootlegs. And the 4th consecutive rookie drafted tonight in the 20th round is Deuce Vaughn. Michael Nazarek taking him there. Khalil Shakir and Tyquan Thornton, a couple of upside receivers for Schroeder and Mans here. Desmond Ridder, the 3rd quarterback drafted by Vince Staffolino to go along with.
Way to go, Vince.
Kirk Cousins and Jordan Love. He gets a little Ritter action there. Kevin Harris, running back in New England, goes to Shope and Krautwurst. Foster Moreau, the third consecutive tight end and fifth tight end overall to John Friedman. Dwayne McBride, another rookie to Darren Armani, Noah Gray, and Hunter Renfro, Mr. Irrelevant in the 2023 Pros versus Joes, as he goes to Gary Davenport from Bleacher Report. So that is what we're looking at in the 20th round. I think the biggest thing here, Terp, and I was going to forget, but I reminded myself.
I didn't forget.
Okay, perfect. How many teams are challengers to the overall throne in tonight's draft, and who wins the overall Pros versus Joes title in 2023?
I came in with one team in mind before this draft that was pretty much stuck in my mind, and I was trying to have one of these guys beat them. I couldn't, but a lot of these teams are really, really good. It's really hard to pick. There's 5 or 6 teams in here that I really like the structure. Chad, Shelley, Mojo, they all had good drafts. You know, the deep end guys. I can keep going. There's a couple other drafts in here that I like. Team 1 had a nice draft. But my overall winner for Pros versus Joes this year from the first draft, which I was not on live, Team 6, Billy Muzio, exceptional value, has a stud quarterback. If I remember correctly, his first 5 picks were Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert. Mixed in some other guys in there that just made the team pop. The 2023 Pros versus Joes winner will be Billy Muzio this year.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Hill, Waddle, Olave, Keenan Allen, Herbert, Dobbins with his first 6 picks. He also peppered in some Tunga Bailoa, Tyler Higbee, Damian Pierce, A-Chain, Rondale Moore, Mooney, Singletary, Conklin, Zamir White, Hubbard, Mechie, Devontae Parker, Tim Patrick. Ooh, that's going to sting with the torn Achilles. But it's his 20th round pick. He had a strong draft. Besides that, I know he's gotten rave reviews over the course of the last week and a half or so.
It's really, really hard. I tried in a lot of these drafts. I mean, there's been a lot of good teams that have started off. I really like what Team 5 did in this draft. They were really chasing for a while, but the quarterback room is what separated it. Tua, Kyler Murray, and Jimmy G. It's just so hard to just – the rest of the team is stacked. But the quarterback room is really what – I mean, they're probably in the second or third, overall, in my opinion, of all the drafts. But the QB room is what separated it.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like we always talk about the overall champion of Pros versus Joes, but each of these teams just has to beat out 11 others to win their free main event team for 2024. And I know there's going to be heavy competition in all these leagues. I know the slow draft is still going on right now, the 7th draft in Pros versus Joes, and quite frankly, I can't do a 2.5-3 week stream here on the show. I can't cover slow draft live pick by pick. Everybody's eyes would roll back in their head and we'd all pass out. That's not fun for anybody. What is going to be fun, guys, coming up Thursday at 10 p.m. this Thursday, 10 p.m. on this stream, draft number 54072 is going to be broadcast live on these airways. Myself and Dave Terpoli will be covering it. Why are we covering it? Because Dave Terpoli is drafting in it for $1 million in the Fantasy Pros Championship. If you want to compete against Dave and 11 other players, make sure you're going to myffpc.com, registering now again at league number 54072. It drafts this Thursday, August 3rd at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Still plenty of spots available. Hop in that one. We're going to broadcast it live. It's going to be a blast. Terp, this was a blast tonight. We will continue to follow you on Twitter at Dave Terp. We'll check you out on Thursday. Farrell, we'll continue to check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. Live main events are starting Sunday evening. The slows are already going on. As to quote a line from Almost Famous, Penny Lane, Kate Hudson, it's all happening.
One more thing real quick. On Sunday, the live main event, me and Aiden are doing a live stream.
So we got a live stream on Sunday as well. Oh, my goodness.
On a fast $2,000 entry main event. It will be one of the first ones. The league's already filled. We already set that up today, so that'll be really fun. Sunday night, I think it's 9 o'clock. I'm pretty sure it's the time. Okay. You'll see some stuff on social media coming up, but that'll be a lot of fun.
And Farrell, you and I will be covering a live on HSFF Hour draft coming up at 9 p.m. on Friday. So that is 3 huge live streams going on this weekend. I'm going to have to warm up for all this by drafting a pretty strong team in Kentucky right now, which I think I'm doing. We're in the 4th round right now. I think I'm all right. But I encourage everybody to go to kffsc.com, A lot of action going on there, including the live stuff in Louisville and Cincinnati coming up later this month.
We got a great August planned, and anyone that wants to participate in it, check us out at kffsc.com. It'll be a blast. And Balky, everyone is thrilled to have you in that division. And it's got to be very difficult to work your way through there in the situation when everybody's gunning for you. Because if they don't win, they can at least say, "Hey, I finished in front of Balky."
That's true, which I'm fine with. I'm totally good with that. That I will hang my head on that. I will hang my head on being a proud follower of both of you guys on social media, at Dave Turp, at J. Farrell Elliott, and a proud member of the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. Turp, we'll talk with you on Thursday. Farrell, we'll talk with you on Friday, dude.
See you guys.
I think I'm sorry. I'm going to end this right now before I lose internet entirely. Thank you so much to Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes, for putting this together. Tremendous work by him. Good luck to him, not only in the FFPC main event, all the FFPC leagues he's playing in, as well as the Pros versus Joes, as he tries to once again win a division, which he's done before here in the FFPC Pros versus Joes Challenge. We are going to continue to pepper in all of the streams and articles that have been posted and written about this draft from the FFPC Pros in our FFPC email, which is going out multiple times every week. Make sure you register for that at myffpc.com. I want to thank Farrell Elliott, Dave Terpoli, and Mike Shope for joining the broadcast tonight. Once again, Thursday night at 7/6 Central, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show will air with myself and Fantasy Pros Nate Polvote. We will talk everything going on in the FFPC for 2 hours. And then coming up at 10 o'clock that night, 10 o'clock Eastern, Turp and I will cover his live Fantasy Pros draft. So that's 3 solid hours of broadcasting, really 4 solid hours of broadcasting that night. It's going to be so much fun. I hope you tune in for it. Friday night at 10/9 Central, live Fantasy Pros draft coverage with Farrell Elliott. That is going to be a blast. That is, beg your pardon, 9/8 Central on Friday. 10/9 Central on Thursday, 9/8 Central on Friday. Is it confusing? Yes. Follow us on social media so you can make sure that you are not missing it as well. Main event drafts, slow drafts are going on right now. The main event live drafts begin for the FFPC coming up this Friday, August 4th. So make sure you're registering for those as well. We got our next our early draft slot announcement coming up in 12 days from now. So make sure you're registering by then, and then you'll have your draft slot a little over 2 weeks from now. So you'll know exactly what slot you are going to be drafting your $1 million team from this year. Fantasy Pros drafts filling up each and every day. Make sure you're registering for that at myffpc.com, as well as the 2 best ball tournaments we got there. Dynasty leagues. We've never had one fold in more than a decade, and we got 1,400 plus of them. If you want to play fantasy football 365 days a year, we encourage you to sign up there as well at myffpc.com. KFFSC is at kffsc.com. Thanks so much for all your support and tuning in. We really appreciate all the eyes we had on these drafts over the last 6 broadcasts. We're going to bring you plenty more live draft coverage as we lead up to Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas for our live main events coming up in the first week of September. Check out Alex Kaganowski and me tomorrow night on the GOAT District podcast with John Daniel and Dan Williamson. That's going to be a great time as well. We've got it all here at the FFPC, and I hope you're enjoying it. I know I am. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your week officially continues right now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
So once again, as a reminder, live draft on Thursday night. Sign up for that 54072 for the Fantasy Pros Championship. Sign up for the live draft 54076. Both of those are Fantasy Pros drafts. That's at 9/8 Central on Friday, 10/9 Central on Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on Friday. We're going to be covering those. And then don't forget about the live main event coverage we're going to have with Aiden LaCorey and Dave Terpoli on Sunday. We've got it all here for you, as including live draft coverage, the pros versus Joes, a ton of stuff going on at the FFPC. Make sure you're keeping us in mind as August rolls on, so you can win not only $1 million grand prize, but a second one as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. It already has been a lot of fun. We're going to keep the fun going here at the FFPC. Thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate you.